So, you want to create a video game. Whether or not you know the idea for the game yet, it's so exciting to be in the place that you are right now because it seems like there's unlimited possibilities in front of you. And I'm telling you, there is. I've said it before and I'll say it again. I believe that games are the epitome of art, combining all of the different artistic mediums plus programming and game design. So, it's such an exciting world to be in, to see that there's so many ways that you can use your voice and use your creativity and knowledge in order to tell a story that other people can play and experience as well. But the challenging part comes when you have this overwhelmed idea where it's like, where do I go from here? I have this game, I want to release it to the public, but how do I get from A to B? There's so many different ways that I can get there. And I'm telling you, there's nothing that's going to help you more than having an actionable step-by-step plan with specific dates and milestones in order to get your game done. So I'm going to tell you how I personally did it. So far, I mean, not released yet, but we've had a Kickstarter, we've had a demo out for Cozy Baking Game, Madame Fifi's Bakery, and I know a thing or two about video game producing. So I want to tell you about my strategy so far and all of the different things required in making an indie game. Let's hop into it. If you're new to the channel, hello there, my name is Helena and I'm the studio director. Oh, a little fly. Again. If you're new to the channel, hello, my name is Helena and I'm the studio director of CozyCat Games, where we develop different cozy games. Right now we're developing Madame Fifi's Bakery, but I also like to share knowledge about indie game development and tips and tricks on how to get started with it and things that have helped me and my team along with it. So let's hop into everything you need to know before making your indie game. Step 1, planning. So before creating your game, I want to know, is this the first game that you've ever created? If so, I don't want you to make your dream game. It's a really bad idea to make your dream idea for the game, like your big, ambitious, my heart is so full of passion for this game, as your first game. You should have experience making games before diving into your dream game because you're gonna just become so overwhelmed by all of the different aspects that go into making a video game that beautiful idea that you have is never gonna come to fruition. I'm telling you, it's way better to start off with an easy Mario remake or, for example, like an easy platformer, easy shooter, something that there is a tutorial out there for as your first game so that you can get some experience and knowledge before hopping into the big dream idea. So let's say you do have experience making games. Let's define that game. What's the genre? What's the type of gameplay that will be involved? Is there going to be a story or is it more narrative? All of these questions are really important in deciding and defining before even starting with development because you need to have a base. You have to have a grand idea so that we can iterate on it and play test it and make sure that it's a viable concept. You should also really keep in mind that every game should have a unique selling point. What that is the sparkling feature when someone is explaining your game to someone else. Imagine there's two little people on the street. Just imagine two little Joes on the street. I don't know. Joe number one's like, I'm playing this really cool game. I love it. It's so fun. Joe number two is like, oh, that's cool. What's the game about? Joe number one is like, well, it's a game about a watermelon slashing. You slash watermelons open and other fruits. And then that's Fruit Ninja or whatever. like what is your unique selling point? If there were two Joes talking on the street, what would they say your game is about? This fly is like, I'm not going to kill it because I don't like killing bugs. Another thing is to know if your game is going to be story-based or gameplay-based. Your genre will help decide that, but that's going to tell basically what kind of team you'll need. If you're making a very gameplay-heavy mini-game, a very action-packed game, you're going to need a lot of programmers and less creatives. Whereas if you're making something that's more narrative-heavy, such as our game, Madame Fifi's Bakery, which is a baking game where you talk to the customers that order things, you're going to need a lot of artistic people and a lot of game designers as well, so they can not only design the structures in the game, but also the narrative and the overall branching themes, right? So these are all things that are critical in planning for your game, because how are you supposed to develop the game if you have no idea what you're working towards? All right, so now you need to make sure that you know if you need a team or not. Most likely you will need a team. If you are a solo developer, I would even recommend trying to partner up with another solo developer and collaborating on an idea together, just because it's a lot more motivating that way. If you don't have a team, you're going to probably need the use of freelancers. Most definitely. There's not a single developer that really makes everything on their own. Usually they employ freelancers. Even the solo devs that you think are solo devs are actually using freelancers. So what are your skills? What are your strengths? What are your non-negotiable things that you will do? And then what are things that you need to outsource? It's really important that you have a diverse team if you choose to have one, because if you have skills in an area and then you have a friend who also is very skilled in that area, maybe it's not best to team up together on this project because you're both going to be good at the same thing and it's just like having two of you. You want to have someone that has opposite opposite skills to you, someone that is going to complement you, like your yin to your yang, that kind of vibe. Also, make sure that you have a very clear communication, very structured way to speak with your team. For us, we use Discord. Most people use Discord. And we have a daily scrum, which is when we text in our chat every single day. What did we do that day? What do we plan on doing tomorrow? That kind of thing. Make sure you have meeting times every week and that you have a very, very clear way to speak and that you're not afraid to poke each other if someone forgot to do something. Communication is key, as they say. Next, deciding your schedule. This is going to depend a lot on what else you're doing in your life. If you have a job, if you go to school, and your team, if they go have a job and go to school, or if they're fully available and this is what you're doing. You fell upon a large inheritance and now you're gonna make indie games, you have all the time in the world. Depending on your situation, your timeline is gonna look different. But it's really important that we establish a timeline. Establish how long do you think it's gonna take to make this game? And then I want you to double that because game development usually takes twice as long as how long you think it will take. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to work backwards. We're planning to release the game next September 2nd to be exact, which is a Tuesday, because every Monday we have our sprint calls. We do a structure of agile methodology, like Scrum methodology. It's like some sort of project management. We have milestones set up for certain playtests and certain festivals and different events that we structure our builds for. So we have a build for this big playtest coming up, okay? 2 weeks before that playtest, I want to have a build for that playtest. And working backwards from that, every single week we're going to have goals that are going to bring us to that milestone so that we can playtest and get feedback and then iterate on that concept. What I personally did for Madame Fifi's Bakery was from September 2nd, I came up with different deadlines that we need. So September 2nd, we have to have the final polished, finished version of the game ready to port onto Steam. But by like a month and a half before, we have to have the final version of that game so that I have a month and a half after that so we can fix any bugs and polish anything. And then before that, we're going to have the beta version. And then before that, you have another version. And then you go through the whole year. Let's say your year is a circle. So this is September 2nd, this one over here. You work around it and then you work back all the way towards where you are now. And then it's so easy. You just say, okay, well, if I want to have the game released by then, these are all the milestones that I need to get there. Make sure that you take full advantage of any playtests in your area, whether they be in person or online as well. Anything that's going to get feedback and people playing the game, because you're not going to be able to make a game that's really fun unless you get feedback and people playing it and knowing what people think of the game, right? We need to get that as soon as possible to test your core concept. Get that minimum viable product out there, that easiest, like the bare bones concept of your game out there as soon as possible so you can iterate and iterate and iterate all the way until you get to your final version of the build. In our sprint meetings, which we have every Monday, what we do is we go over everything that we did in the past week. Every team member has a point where they get to say what went wrong, what went right, and what did we do from last Monday that we said we were going to do, what did we do that we didn't say that we're going to do, and what did we not do at all. We're very honest and very open and not seeing that not doing something makes us a failure or an abandonment of the team. There's no sense of guilt there, right? Because people's lives are malleable and changing, and the world's not going to end if your indie game doesn't release on time. Deciding what console to port to is another crucial step. Probably easiest to port to Steam, but you're going to want to look at also porting maybe to consoles as well, different like Xbox and Nintendo Switch, depending on what your genre is, what players play most often. And the last I would look at is mobile games. Unless you're explicitly making a game for smartphones, honestly, I wouldn't recommend mobile unless you have also a deal with Apple Arcade. It's really difficult to monetize and it's just a hassle to make it because there's so much competition. It's really oversaturated at this point. Do you like getting paid? Getting paid is pretty cool, so let's decide what those monetization options are. There's tons of ways to monetize your indie game, such as a premium one-time sale, which is what most games on Steam and consoles use, but there's also things like microtransactions, if you're into that, a free game, freemium game with ads that are hosted throughout, or DLCs, which is also another way to encourage sales of a game that's already been released and then you want to add extra content. Think about that. And lastly, marketing. Marketing is so important because no one's going to play your game if they don't know that it exists. Marketing is something that you got to get on early, right? Some people say, oh, only do it like towards the end of the game. I did not let that stop me. I started creating videos on this YouTube channel and our TikTok page before we even knew what the game concept was. I mean, that's That's very eager. I'm very eager, but you gotta start marketing early because it takes a while to know what your marketing flow is, to know what kind of videos that you like to create, what kind of content works for you. I mean, if you're not someone that likes making content, also that's totally understandable, but you know, you gotta start reaching out to influencers early. Otherwise, hooking up with a publisher and getting that marketing asset there. You know, you need to be thinking about this stuff right from the beginning, because if you want your game to be commercially successful, it needs to be known. And you need to know which platforms also do you want to be marketing on. Use a combination, a little Venn diagram of what social media platforms you enjoy looking at and consuming content from, and then what platforms do the people that play your type of game go on and consume. Most likely, if you're making a game, you probably are similar to the people that would play that game and therefore are on the same social media platform. So probably in your heart, you know what the answer is. If you're making a game that lots of people on Reddit would play, you're a big Redditor. There you go. I'm personally a big TikToker. I make games, cozy games, which are very trendy on TikTok, and so I grew on TikTok. If you want to see my growth strategy for TikTok, how I got 50,000 followers in just 3 months, you can watch the video up there. So now you're ready to dive headfirst into development. I'm so proud of you taking the initiative and taking the steps to go step by step and decide what is necessary in order to make this game. If you're looking to host a crowdfunding campaign such as Kickstarter, I personally have just a failed Kickstarter that has just ended this past few weeks. I made a video about explaining everything that I learned from that campaign, so you can watch that video down in the description below. Let me know what you guys would like to see from me in the future, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Have a good one. Bye.